Dear colleagues, friends, welcome everyone. Today we are running our final webinar for this year, and it has been a restless and difficult year for most of us, a year full of stressful breaking news, but at the same time a year of new opportunities for everyone. And we have to thank all our supporters, our speakers, participants, mentors, and representatives of endorsing organizations in Lviv. Thank you all for facilitating such a fantastic webinar series. Thank you all for your support. And I am sure that all our participants improved their writing skills and result in a great number of great articles. And today we are going to discuss a very important topic for all scholars, such as graphic editing, articles writing, and presentation formatting. And I'm very happy to introduce our today's speakers, Dr. Armen Gasparyan, Dr. Latika Gupta, and Dr. Durga Misra. And also I am going to switch from English to Ukrainian. Шановні колеги, вітаю всіх учасників сьогоднішнього вебінару. Слід сказати, що сьогоднішній вебінар є 12-й по рахунку у цьому році. Розпочинали ми у лютому місяці з face-to-face зустрічі у місті Львові. І після цього багато чого змінилося. Це 2020 рік, я вже поспішила трішки вперед. Був однозначно неоднозначним, дуже суперечливим. З одного боку, він був загрозливим для життя та здоров'я наших рідних, близьких, друзів, колег, але з іншого боку, цей рік приніс нам також нові можливості, нові знання. Зокрема, для тих, хто працює у освіті, лікарі, ми отримали нові знання, завдякуючи тому, що ми змінили формат нашого спілкування з безпосереднього спілкування на онлайн-спілкування. І завдякуючи цьому, власне, і народилася ця серія вебінарів. Ми хочемо, власне, покращити якість загалом наукової публікації, і мета, щоб про наукові роботи наших українських вчених довідалися у світі. А для цього треба писати гарною англійською мовою і дотримуватися усіх міжнародних стандартів публікації наукових статей. Слід сказати, що завдякуючи, власне, такому новому формату нашого життя, кордони просто пропали між континентами, країнами, ми стали тісніше спілкуватися, і завдякуючи цьому покращилася, власне, наукова комунікація. І слід сказати, що в нашій серії вебінарів прийняли участь вчені з різних країн, крім України, це Сполучені Штати Америки, Індія, Великобританія, Болгарія, Польща, навіть Єгипет, Казахстан. Так що наш вебінар об'єднав вчених з різних країн з однією метою покращити якість наукової публікації. І дуже рада всіх вас сьогодні бачити і хочу запросити до слова нашого ментора, без якого би була неможлива, власне, ця серія вебінарів, нашого шановного, дорогого Армена Гаспаряна. Будь ласка.
Олена, thank you very much for...
Так, one moment. Oh, yes.
Can you hear me?
Everything yes, fine? Everything is fine.
Okay, good. So today we are going to run our final webinar in a long series of educational and scientific webinars aimed to improve writing skills of Eastern European and other authors. I am honored and privileged to be with you as a speaker and as a probably chairperson of this webinar series. All our presentations are drafted and tailored to meet aims of all our participants from different cities of Ukraine and other countries. Today we have participants from Ternopil, from Kharkiv, Lviv, Varna, Bulgaria, Sofia, Bulgaria again, and all these participants are authors, active researchers, reviewers, and today's presentations will be useful for them for improving, for somehow upgrading their writing styles, improving their work on different journals, because some of our today's participants are journal editors as well. And I'd like to thank you, Olena, for moderating this webinar series. My thanks also go to Professor Valentina Chopiak, who will be with us today. Again, our chairwoman, Oksana Zaitchkivska, who, of course, is an influential professor in physiology, but she's also an influential mentor and supporter of our webinar series. Professor Stanislav Stoika, who managed to join us today. Professor Vasil Lanchina from Chicago, an expert in bioethics. Not to left all our other participants from other countries, from Bulgaria. They do great job by supporting us, by joining our our webinars. They will definitely get points for their own daily practices. So my gratitude to all mentors, supporters, participants, and also supporting organizations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, dear Arman. Our first speaker is Dr. Latika Gupta. She is leading Indian rheumatology.
Olena, perhaps, Olena, few words to Professor Stoika.
One moment.
And Professor
Yes.
Oksana Zaitchkivska.
Yes. Yes.
Okay. Dear colleagues, I'm Rostislav Stoika, head of department at the Institute of Cell Biology and also a professor at the Department of Normal Physiology at Medical University and also professor of biochemistry at National University named after Ivan Franko. So, and also the president of our association of the editors. So, dear Professor Zaitchkivska, dear Olena Zimba, dear Armen Gasparyan, dear all, I would like to say that this year was a special year because of this pandemic situation. And just a week ago, I'm back to my work after infection. It's not so good experience, but I wish you never get into these problems. Better obtain your vaccination and be healthy for 2021. A few words on the items which we will discuss today. You know, it's not only a theoretical issue, it's a practical issue for the Ukrainian scientists, because now the Ministry of Science and Education of Ukraine, the National Academy of Sciences of Ukraine have started counting international publications, impact factor, Hirsch index. So that is very important, not only being in this scientific elite, but it's important for getting new financial support for your investigation, for your work. So I wish you good publications in 2021. I wish you increase your impact factor, increase your Hirsch index. So be well in scientific regard and also be healthy for this new year. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Stoica. Who would like to add a few words? Professor Lonchina, would you like to say something? Professor Zaychevska?
Yes, can I? And I would like to share my presentation, short presentation.
Would you like to share right now or right now? Or
right now, yes, for greetings also and for appreciation.
So
okay.
Latika, just next you will be Latika.
Just
sorry
yes,
about
okay.
that. So Oksana, your
Okay.
presentation in Ukrainian?
No, in English.
Okay.
Так, one moment. Yes, you can share your screen with us.
No, it looks not that. Did you see or no?
I can see your screen, but I cannot see your. Oh, yes,
okay.
I can see your presentation.
So, dear students, dear colleagues, sorry, it's professionally, really, dear colleagues, dear Armen, Rostislav and Vasily and all today participants. First of all, I can say that we have light at the end of our tunnel because it was really hard. So year, and this year has seemed to last forever. It was a lot of challenges, but we survived thanks to you. But before I will tell us, I knew that some of ones was ill or have some relatives who was ill. Please, we extend our deepest condolence and souls for all of this. It's really very, very hard year. So first of all, we also send our thanks in appreciation for our colleagues. Because we prepared two issues this year. Yeah, it was not easy, but they, our first experience that we work online and we work a lot offline with our technicians and with our authors. And you can see we were in time preparation of both of them. They are online. Both of them are dedicated to the COVID. We increased diversity of our authors. You can see we have from the East, from the West countries authors except Ukrainians. And now our journals on the good position and data from our websites. You can see here that is readers from 110 different countries and mostly from Ukraine still, but about 50% from the world. And our main meeting was Smartline and several webinars which we did together with you, especially big thanks to Armen Hasparyan, who creates this very nice series of webinars dedicated to the scientific writing, as well as Dr. Lonchina, who speaks about the changes and challenges in medical education. So you can see all this big list of our webinars. So first of all, I would like to thank our leader of our society, Professor Valentina Chupiak, her energy to organize all of us and also involve junior members. So it's our biggest achievement that we collect young doctors who are interesting and in scientific writing and also editing. So my very, very warm wishes, Merry Christmas and Happy New Year to all, and please stay safe and enjoy the holiday time. And read our journal.
Dear Oksana, thank you very much. It's really good start for today's webinar. Thank you very much. And now I would like to introduce our today's speaker, Dr. Latika, who is one of the leading Indian rheumatologist, and she is also a highly skilled editor, author, reviewer, and also she is an expert in social media. Dr. Latika, she is going to talk about social media promotion of scholarly graphics and video materials.
Good evening, Alina, and everyone. Thank you so much for having me on board today. It's been an absolute pleasure to join all of you for these webinars. And today we'll be talking about social media for photos and graphics. So before we go further, we need to understand why these are important and what is the role in academia. Further, we will go on and discuss the design, dissemination, and the various channels for promoting media. So social media and promotions of visual material has come a long way from the conventional emojis which we used to use in chats and are still widely used to the emergence of selfies, which some people still struggle to understand about. And then GIFs are the new kid on the block and are rapidly gaining foothold in promotions and dissemination of ideas, particularly because they're very attention catching. In fact, the attention spans with increasing use of social media are gradually shrinking, and people want to retain more information in less time. So infographics are the new tool, and in fact, videos may be what the future, where the future lies. So as you would have seen, pictures can convey way more than words can. And human civilization, if we look back at the history in times of disasters, for example, the WTC attacks or any of the terrorist attacks, always mass solidarity has been, the message has been spread primarily by using pictures as the medium, because they could convey emotions, and people would change the picture to the flag of the country and express solidarity worldwide. So a picture is worth 1,000 words, and the answer lies in this book. So this is my favorite book, and by a Nobel laureate, Daniel Kahneman, an economist and a philosophy enthusiast, who describes our brain in very simple terms. It can be broken down into type 1 and type 2 system. So type 2 is the slow system, which is logical thinking, which takes a lot of effort, while type 1 is a subconscious and automatic mind, which takes all the decisions and is the hero of the brain. And it is interesting to note how pictures, when you see a single picture, then so much happens in a matter of few seconds that it is more likely to influence the type 1 brain. Even when your type 2 brain has to get activated, or you take a logical decision about something, it is going to take time, and it is going to get piggyback over the type 1 system's decision. So when you look at a picture in simple terms, you look at the subject matter, how familiar you are with it, is it ambiguous, is it new, how real does it look, what are the expressions like? And then we look at the form, how sharp is it, what is the shape? And then the emotional dimension, do you feel aroused, do you feel excited? So there's a broad picture, a broad structure of an image, there's a content, and there are finer details which you will look at it. And these together activate this feedback loop where from the occipital system, the limbic system is activated. So this is the subcortical axis, and once this is activated, it can really activate motivation. In fact, the survival instinct is based on this. It is a precognitive, rapid assessment of the environment. So the environment in this case could be just a picture or an infographic, which is based on certain gross elements of an image is at the core of human survival. So this goes much deeper than we can imagine, with some properties of visual images eliciting an affective response even when they're insufficient for basic cognitive judgments like recognition. So even when you don't recognize an image, you may associate it with some sort of an emotion which can influence your actions. And in the current times, this gains an even larger importance because academia has moved beyond physical libraries. It has moved online. Everything is over the internet, and social media is a new frontier in academic research and engagement. So infographics can be particularly important if you are a researcher, an academic, or a student or a teacher, because it leads to dissemination of information rapidly. It can be changed quickly. You can disseminate it, and then you can, if there's new information, you can float it out immediately. It is effective. It is widespread, so you can disseminate it widely, and has translated potential. As you saw previously, it has the potential to influence behavior patterns or translate into practice, provided you convey it in the right way. And lastly, we've talked about this so many times that alt metrics are maybe the new metric of visibility and recognition. And of course, dissemination over social media platforms, infographics can be the key in increasing alt metric scores. So the main point here is designing a good infographic, because if you don't have a good one, then it is not going to be impactful. And what works? So of course, coming to academic infographics, we're going to touch that in a bit. But in general, something which can make the person relate with emotions, facial expression, pets, curved contours versus sharp edges. So these are the things which people would prefer. And in general, there's the role of context. So the same image in China may be interpreted differently. In fact, the same expression may be interpreted in Greenland as surprise, while in China it may be in sadness. So there's also a cultural context, and also pre-existing conditioning. So if you already associate one image with a particular kind of action or thought process, then that's likely to trigger the same behavior pattern or thought once more. So usually when you float an infographic or an image, it can help to learn, initiate action, and survive. But this happens through 6 key emotions, that is anger, fear, surprise, disgust, joy, and sadness. And it's interesting to know how these things operate through a tiny feedback loop in the brain, connecting the subcortical structures with the cortex. And some of these centers lie in the upper temporal area as well, which are being identified increasingly with the use of functional MRI. But similarly, there are certain aspects of pictures which can lead to a negative impact, and these particularly need to be avoided and kept in mind when you're designing kind of an image. Particularly if something which has a sad connotation or an angry face or ambiguous subject matter. This is particularly common in academia, that you have something which has high novelty, but it is also very unfamiliar, and the joy of sounding different or intelligent can make you err on the side. So it can have a negative impact and may not have the desired impact at all. And also a lack of realism. So if it is not likely to enjoy graphic. Again, contours, colors, and these are the other aspects of floating an image and designing a good one. So whenever a person views an image, this has a direct impact on emotional processing, the centers of the brain, and therefore any kind of art or infographics for healthcare facilities, they have to be very carefully selected depending on the people whom we intend to influence with those, particularly their patients. So now two important components in an image are valence and arousal. So valence is what the connotation is, or what the convention is, what is generally society associates this kind of an image with. So something that's burning here, which has a negative or low valence, but also has a high arousal, it has a high excitability quotient. But then something which is more positive connotation. So an image can speak a lot, but you need to be sure with the valence and arousal. So valence can range from pleasant to positive, to unpleasant and negative, and arousal from calming or soothing to exciting or agitating. And then there's dominance. How big are the objects? They're large figures or small figures. You want to keep too many small figures in the image versus one large dominant figure, which is preferred for infographics for wider dissemination. Because the simpler you keep it, the better it is. So it is always good to keep restorative images. Restorative are those which are previously recognized and your mind is conditioned to get a particular signal. So something that you associate with a particular kind of positive memory. And then cognitive ease is again the sense of familiarity. That is cognitive ease, and restorative images are those with the positive connotation, which are typically high valence and low arousal. So they induce a sort of relaxation when you look at them. And then the primal response, global cues. So you have a simple image, which is not too much detail, simple to understand. And of course, the emotional impact needs to be balanced with the aesthetics. If you just want a pretty picture, but it has too much detail or it has no emotion in it at all, then it's not likely to be impactful. Well, this was general stuff. Now, slowly we move on to what we need in an image as an academic. Firstly, the common questions that I come across are, what are the free tools that I can use to design an infographic? And Microsoft PowerPoint is the one that we are most familiar with while delivering presentations and even Microsoft documents. And then Canva and Tableau are two other free tools which have a lot to offer, and I have personally used them and enjoyed doing so. So the simple aspects of an infographic is the content. So you have to be concise. You can't put in a lot of messages in one infographic. So concise and less is more, because you're able to get that information through. They need to be self-explanatory. So it should not be complicated, and the reader should not need another person or any other tool to explain it. You should not use complicated words. You should not need to Google what this word means. So always simplicity is an art and preferred in designing an infographic as well. And then use graphs and flowcharts, again, to simplify complex ideas. And the idea is to digest the information and provide it in a nearly assimilated form for them to easily absorb. This is an example of an infographic that I found on the internet, and as you can see, it has few objects, a uniform font size, it has a nice color scheme, and it conveys a message: the Indian states with the most coronavirus cases. And of course, the audience would be the lay public, and the idea is very relevant to that because this is currently the major concern. So this was about the content, and then there's an aspect to design. The font has to be uniform, as we saw in the previous infographic. There should not be any crowding, because when there's clutter, then the brain can't decipher what is meaningful and what is not, and there's a danger that important information will be entirely missed out. And then you need to respect symmetry. It is always appreciated and more aesthetic and stimulative for the brain if the symmetry and color schema is appropriate. But these are also relevant and determining the art and aesthetic sense of an individual, but it comes with practice. For example, this is another infographic, which is simple, one image, which is self-explanatory. These are the various protective gear, and these are the individual components. The names of these are highlighted as bold. So very simple and nice infographic for public dissemination. There can also be examples of how not to do something. So like this one, which is crowded and has sharp borders. The fonts are not uniform. So many fancy fonts which will distract the reader. And with a shrinking attention span, the information may be totally lost. And the colors which do not blend into one another or are not contrasting and don't pair up well. Infographics for published articles can definitely be more challenging than simple infographics for the general lay public, but they need to at least define the key objective of the paper, the messages that we've obtained after research, sometimes nice figures which can simplify and organize all the information, Only the hard facts which need to go out in, as a conclusion and future directions are welcome in infographics. For example, this is an infographic of a narrative review of COVID-19, hydroxychloroquine, and sudden cardiac death. So there are so many ideas in here. So we use some large images to show hydroxychloroquine and COVID-19, the positive effects, the negative effects, and then what happens in rheumatic diseases where hydroxychloroquine is otherwise beneficial. So it has a lot of positive effects, as we can see here. There are some negative effects, but in rheumatic diseases with COVID, there is very little data. So the idea was to highlight that there is little data about this, and this idea has been clearly pushed out through this manuscript and the infographic. Another example is of an original article where post-publication promotion in rheumatology. Do the authors believe in social media promotion? So as you can see here, we have the title clearly mentioned above, and then the methods in a concise form, and then the results, the main figures, which depict, like for the published article, would you prefer a visual abstract? Yes, most of them would prefer a visual abstract, while a video abstract would be preferred by some, and voice abstracts are the least preferred. So the message is loud and clear. We could even do away with the rest of the figures to make it an even better infographic. And then what are the novel insights? You can also include the future directions in place. Coming to dissemination, so dissemination of good infographics. Once you've designed a really good infographic, dissemination is also important, and there are several aspects to it. You can schedule your posts so that their visibility is higher. You can use hashtags to associate them with particular keywords. The title needs to be catchy. We'll look at examples in a minute. And then you have to include the link to the main article for those who want to read the entire paper. And time zoning is another thing which is very useful when your target audience is spread across the globe. So scheduling tools are available. Various different tools are available, but the most common one, if you're using Twitter for disseminating your research, then Twitter has a scheduler in place, which is very convenient to use. And you can just stick to that. Well, if you're in Ukraine and you're using Facebook for academic discussions, then Facebook pages also allow scheduling of posts. Although I think for personal profiles, they do not allow that to the best of my awareness. Then there is an excellent scheduling tool called Hootsuite, which allows 30 free schedules per month, which is again useful because here you can post one image on multiple platforms. So you don't have to log in into Twitter, Facebook, Instagram separately. So it allows 3 channels. You log into all of them through Hootsuite. So you just go to this channel and then you schedule posts, and they will be posted across different platforms. So this is an excellent tool, and Buffer is also similar, except that it allows only 10 per month for free. Important note, if you're disseminating videos, then it's better to go to the platform and do it yourself, because sometimes these are not, they do not sync well with videos. So if this is my Twitter account and I want to create a post, I type something out, add an image, and then this is the scheduler button. By default, Twitter schedules for 7 days later, so you may need to change it actively into today if you want to post it today. And for Facebook, suppose you create a post. So here is the icon which says post scheduling is available in publishing tools. So you need to go and activate it, and then you can do that for a page. So Twitter is a worldwide space with a lot of information floating around, and it may be difficult for people to make sense of your information, or it may get lost in the cloud of information. You need to really reach the right audience. And for the tweets to make it to the right audience, you need to use hashtags. And suppose I want to see hashtags, so you can also create your own hashtag. For example, if you have a journal for the Schwenko Society, then you can create a hashtag called Schwenko Journal, and then use that hashtag for all the posts that you're creating. And then is the search tool, where you want to search about one particular person or one particular journal or one particular topic. Like I wanted to search about myself, and I learned that there's a history teacher by my name. So it is very interesting what hashtags can do, and they can pick up the relevant information from a pile of a lot of junk. So another very important aspect of promoting and disseminating your research on social media is an appropriate title. Even for sharing other articles, your title, if it is not interesting, it is likely that your followers may not read about it. So a good title is analytical. You've put much thought into it, and when you have your perspective added to it, then there's more weight in it. People want to know what your opinion is. Human opinion matters. And if it is thought-provoking, it is all the more interesting, and people are more likely to read it. Again, like images, even your post titles need to be uncomplicated. And sometimes you can create an opinion poll, so it'll have options which the viewers can choose. And even catchy titles sometimes do well. But what you should not do is misinform or post anything that is unethical or defamatory. If you are representing a journal account, then identifying information is usually not welcome unless you're tagging an author and it's legitimate to do that. Some posts which do better than others are those, again, with a positive emotion attached to them, simply because of the cognitive ease. If they're optimistic, joyful, posts which express that you're grateful or with humor typically do better. So again, for example, say come back to our mentor for social media, Dr. Eric Topol, who has a zillion followers on Twitter. His posts express the wide range of unique tools and tricks, and they're the perfect tweets and how you should do it. So for analytical tweets, as you can see here, he says, exemplifying how hard it is to contain the virus. Some countries are on to yet another round, even round 4 for Israel. So there's an image to convey the message he's trying to deliver, and then a simple text to support that. And he's saying it is hard to contain the virus, so there's a feeling attached to it. And then he talks about round 4 for Israel. And then simplicity exemplified in this one, where the UK COVID case curve was descending, but the spread of the B117 variant is associated with a U-turn. Again, something which is of immense concern to other people, but with the diagram, the hub and node plot, which is very clearly depicting the rise in cases with the new strain. So lucid description of the data he's trying to represent, along with a very simple analytical text. He could also have something that is thought-provoking for doctors. So everyone is worried about COVID reinfections, but then he says for documented reinfections, so look at the terminology, it is very succinct, I would say. Only 2 have been fatal. The second one was in Israel in a 74-year-old man. So full list of reinfections globally with genomic evidence. So this is important data is provided. 2 links here to support the statement, and then a screenshot of one of these. So this is thought-provoking in some ways. He doesn't say it directly, but probably reinfections may not be as common or as concerning as was thought to be initially, is what he's trying to say. And then if you are a social media influencer, then also informing about misinformation, like about vaccines or other aspects, is a responsibility, especially if you're the subject expert for that. People look up to you for information. So like how not to announce vaccine results. No transparency and efficacy above 50% means nothing. So you say it in simple and clear terms, along with the link you're talking about. And this is again Dr. Atul Gawande, a public health expert and author of various books. He's also trying to inform about misinformation where he says that COVID is dangerous for all. We must stop saying otherwise. So he first provides the facts and then quotes and then a statement with an analysis. So any kind of interpretation is backed by evidence and the appropriate link. Honesty and disclosure are another important aspect while creating posts like Lifebox, the nonprofit I chair, makes surgery and anesthesia safer around the world. Watch this video. So here he's declaring that he's chairing, but it is nonprofit. So these are also important aspects and some legal implications if you are representing Society Journal or something. And then we come to optimism, hope, and joy. Like, love this lightning fast graph. So love is the emotion here. Lightning fast, again, exemplifies the same. For context of 140 years in vaccine development, superimposed. So again, he's saying they're superimposed. If you had clicked down, then COVID-19 was orange and blue superimposed in 1 year. So, so there are a lot of words used here to convey the joy. And this makes you like retweet or like the post in an instant. And then if you enjoy medical humor, that's some examples for you. It seems rodents are more aggressive than primates in fighting off COVID-19. And this is medical humor. The expressions here speak more than 1,000 words would. Humor at its best. And then if you want to convey don'ts for Christmas, so don't Zoom with Marley's ghost and ghosts of Xmas past and present and future at hourly intervals. So if you enjoy medical humor and would like to learn more from these people, then this is a highly recommended social media account, an ophthalmologist and comedian with the name of D. Clockham Flecken, humor in the name itself, speaker, and can't wait till we prevent COVID by vaccinating every human being instead of our current method of checking temperature at the front door. So Dr. G is trying to convey that checking temperature may not be the most effective way of preventing COVID-19. This is by means of humor that he's trying to convey something. The rules are simple. You refuse the vaccine even though you're healthy enough for it. You go to anti-vaxxer island. It's 50 miles from the Arctic Circle and full of wolves, but the entire island is preservative free. So sarcasm at its best. And then emotions, like shout out to medical students on Med Twitter who've survived this look from their attendings. This is more of Dr. G. You can enjoy the GIF yourself at his account. Shout out to the anonymous Twitter follower who sent this incredible mouse with eyeballs all over. So jokes apart, time zoning is another important aspect while creating a post, because you're, if I'm sitting in India and creating a post, but I want all of you to read it and I create it at 6 a.m. in India, it's likely to be 3 a.m. in Ukraine and no one's going to read it. A lot of you will be fast asleep, and by the time you wake up, it'll be down on your Twitter, and probably you would miss it unless you spend a lot of time on the app. So time zoning is important, and that is why typically one needs to create at least 5 or 6 posts every day for accounts that are visible, and the time zoning also needs to vary. With experience, you'll know what are the best times to disseminate your research. Like typically most of the Zoom meetings are at 7:30 p.m. IST, which is 2 p.m. BST, and 10 a.m. in US in some areas. So that works out best for most parts of the world. And there are also some best days, like people are less likely to view your tweets on Saturday evenings, and then more on Monday mornings or Friday evenings. And then anticipatory tweets, suppose pre-Christmas, there's some research around Christmas and COVID, then you're likely to have increased visibility if you floated around that time. So I hope you're not feeling Twitter zoned yet, but do not forget to connect with the real followers, even if you do. And very important to remember about copyright infringement. It can be a blurred distinction when you pick images from the internet, particularly to promote posts. So you can also create posts to support your research or anything that you're reading. So the pictured posts typically gain more attention. Sometimes it may not be pictures from the article itself. And there are plenty of images flooding the internet to support a single idea, but then always go to Creative Commons to avoid copyright infringement. And it is always best to make your own. Even when you use Creative Commons or anything else, it's always essential to quote the original source. And there are various means of creating images. So you can also use Microsoft Office to create these simple charts to convey more messages than one. And you can be creative with the kind of charts you use. With the new charts tool in Microsoft Office, there are plenty of options. And you can also use Canva to draw diagrams like this one. It comes with practice, but very easy to use. And there are plenty of videos on YouTube to check that out. Maybe we'll discuss this at another time. And sometimes you can just create an image to support the key messages from a paper, like post-viral myositis, a case series report. So you say severe cases can lead to early mortality, but most run a self-limiting course with full recovery, but they need to be differentiated from myositis. So this is the key message, and you have summarized in a single eye-catching picture, which you can tweet about. And sometimes you could use videos along with the link to your article, just because it gets better attention, unless you can make videos which can summarize your key findings, like video abstracts, which is another big topic which we'll keep for another day. And this is an example of another eye-catching image with key messages summarized for dissemination on social media platforms. In Microsoft PowerPoint, there are various tools like the icons tool, which you can use for simple images like the one we saw for COVID-19 and hydroxychloroquine, and then the draw tool. And you can also use online images, but make sure you stick to the Creative Commons. Like these are all obtained from the icons, which are very simple to use, and you can also change the color and design. This is another infographic summarizing how to conduct a technology model scientific meeting. So it was important to depict the structure and style of the meeting, which was done by small icons from Microsoft PowerPoint, along with text to avoid overcrowding. There are numerous channels where you can disseminate your scientific observations, and Twitter is the most commonly used in the West, while the use is less in several regions, non-Anglophone particularly. But Twitter is also planning to offer the translation tool soon. So in that case, it'll be easier to tweet even in your local language, which some people are already doing. They're highly recommended to use for scholars. Apart from that, Facebook is good for all kinds of media, just like Twitter, be it a video or Twitter only allows short videos, but Facebook can allow larger videos as well. And Instagram also allows short videos as well as long ones as IGTV. While YouTube is good only for videos which are longer than a minute. So just to summarize, there are several key aspects of images, how to design them, the color, the shape, the emotion, and the key messages, which should be concise and direct. And there are some don'ts which we went about discussing, which should be certainly avoided. But yes, a picture is worth more than 1,000 words, so highly recommended to create images while disseminating scientific observations. Thank you.
Dear Latika, thank you very much for your excellent presentation with a great number of advice for our participants, how to create infographics and share on social media together with articles. Yes, and we have one question from our participant, PhD student from Ternopil National Medical University, Olga Machovska. Just a moment. A comment to you, dear Latika. Thank you very much for your clear and relevant lecture materials. What statistical programs would you recommend for the best infographics?
Thank you, Ola.
Sorry, Latika, the question was statistical software.
Statistical, yes.
So for statistical analysis, this is a wonderful question indeed. So if you're doing basic research, like you're looking at a biomarker and you want to check healthy controls versus suppose a particular disease, and then you want to show the levels of that biomarker or numerous observations at a single point in different people, and you want to compare the two groups, then PRISM offers the best kind of pictures. In fact, I use PRISM for most of the statistical analysis for this reason, because SPSS also gives you those options, but they don't come out so well. If you want to conduct more advanced form of research, then Strata is a good option. But again, it requires expert skill. So I will share my screen to show you one of the figures obtained in PRISM. Like here, it was AS versus healthy controls, and you could get a dot plot where each dot is an observation. So you know exactly where each value stands. And this is the unique plot which you see in GraphPad PRISM. I think 1 month subscription is free. After that, you need to purchase. And even the ROC curves come out pretty well, even though that comes out well with SPSS as well.
Dear Latika, do you use Canva software for free?
Yes, so Canva, a lot of features are free, and it is an excellent tool for designing, drawing, and also for creating infographics. But if you want to use excellent images from the Creative Commons database, then those are limited to the Canva Pro. So the best images are all, they're available even free of cost, but they will carry a Canva watermark. Even if you need to use, when you want to use a lot of videos, then they will also carry the Canva watermark. So if you upgrade to Pro, then you have those without the watermark, which is excellent.
Thank you. Dr. Arman, would you like to ask some questions to Latika?
So, just to introduce Latika again to our audience, she's a gifted person and star in clinical rheumatology, world rheumatology. So I am really impressed with her productivity and also articles, presence on social media, her influence. She's a Twitter influencer and social media influencer. My question is how our researchers in Eastern Europe and other Central Asian countries may benefit from infographics and also drawing figures, drawing graphics using Canva and other advanced software.
So thank you, Dr. Gasparian, for the very kind words. I feel if you are a busy person and you want to read a lot and understand a lot in a short span of time, like I am personally a very impatient person. So for me, images do it best. If it's a good infographic, then you see it in seconds and you get the main gist. Because if you think you're going to read all the literature out there and gather all the messages and the entire results of each of them, that is not reasonable. You can't expect yourself to do that. So so learn from good infographics, check them out, and then you start drawing your own. The other advantage of learning to draw good infographics is to deliver crystal clear information. You need to digest and understand it yourself first. So it's also a great learning exercise, like understanding the information better, apart from learning the art of delivering it in a better way.
Okay, thank you very much. So all our participants and all researchers need to know how to draw infographics, how to draw figures. Without figures, without drawing skills, they cannot succeed in writing good articles.
Yes, and we should encourage our authors to submit manuscripts with impressive images. It's really important. And it's much easier for post-publication article promotion for social media editor. if article has impressive pictures, I mean.
Okay.
Yes, definitely. I think as editors, we should start asking for infographics. Some of the journals
Yes.
like seminars are routinely asking for that these days.
Yes.
And we should also maybe adopt the same model.
I have a question, if I can.
Of course.
Graphic abstract is very widely requested. And what would you suggest? It should be more analytical or more complicated or more catchy? How many figures, how many graphs should be on the graphic abstract?
So I think it's an excellent question. And this is what it is all about. You have to strike the right balance. A good graphical abstract should have the title, the key observations. You may have the methods mainly in just 1 or 2 lines. It's nice to use colored boxes to highlight whatever you have to, but then the color combinations need to be in sync with one another. The figures need not be too many because you can't deliver all the information that's there in the paper through the graphical abstract. So whatever is the take-home message, you only carry that, and that figure is included. You may also ask the author sometimes to create a special image for that, but usually it's part of the manuscript. And then again, to reiterate the same, because in the human mind, you need to go over a piece of information 1 or 2 times for that cognitive ease and for better retention. So it's better to again state that fact in the end and with the potential limitations or the future directions.
Thank you.
I have one question to Latika or probably to Armen Gasparyan. Can authors promote images from own articles that was published in journals without open access? Can author promote own images from articles?
So I got your point.
Yes.
Yeah, of course. Yes. Authors may promote their articles by using images. All images, though copyright protected, yeah, even copyright protected, can be promoted by authors because they promote their own figures, and they should also reference primary source. Even if it's their own article, they should add link to primary source. So Latika, your opinion?
Yes, definitely. This is something which has puzzled me as well at times, because when you sign the copyright agreement, that there are 10 conditions there, and every journal has different conditions, and sometimes you feel that you hope you're not violating it. But yes, for academic promotions, it is ethical to share select aspects of the images because you're not sharing the entire article, and it is just like promoting the abstract. You know, a graphical abstract is essentially, so even as part of as being a social media editor, sometimes we have these tough discussions with the publishers where the publishers would not want you to share all the images from the articles, especially journals which are closed access, but you can promote certain images provided it's not the entire article, so that is ethical.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and our next speaker, Dr. Durga Misra. Dr. Durga, are you with us?
Hello, good evening.
Hello, hello.
Good evening, Dr. Olina. Good evening, Dr. Armen.
Yes, I would like to
I'm just starting
introduce.
to share my screen.
Yes, I would like to introduce our
Yes, please.
Our regular contributor to our webinar, one of the leading Indian rheumatologists, immunologist, Dr. Durga Misra, who is author of numerous articles on scientific writing and editing, and an editor of several influential journals. You can start your presentation. One moment, I should unmute one of our participants. Oh, now everything is okay. Yes, you can start your presentation. Yes.
Good evening, Dr. Olina, Dr. Arman and colleagues, and thank you so much for the invitation to deliver this lecture. It was quite a tough topic that the organizers gave me, rules for editing tables and figures for scholarly articles. So I had to focus on whatever experience little I have gained, and I'll try to speak from that viewpoint. So if we go to the results section of a manuscript, in the IMRAD format, you have the introduction, methods, results, and the discussion. The results section represents the original work of the authors in a research paper, and it is here that most often figures in tables are used. So figures can be of various types that are used. A common confusion amongst young authors is the difference between a bar chart and a histogram. If you look at a bar chart, you can see that the bars are separated from each other. And in a histogram, they appear more or less continuous. Is that the only difference between the two? Actually, bar charts are used to represent information in which the various categories are independent of each other. For example, this is a bar chart comparing the median times visitors stayed at each of the 12 museum exhibitions. You can see that these are independent of each other. So at the various exhibitions, the visitors stayed for time ranging from about 8 minutes to more than 30 minutes. And this you can represent by means of a bar chart. You could easily have inverted the sequence of this. You could easily have put the bar with the longest visiting time right in the middle, and that would have been fine. Whereas here is a histogram showing the distribution of times visitors spent at one museum exhibition. So as you can see, it's distribution of time. So the bar here represents what proportion of the total time was spent by a visitor. Visitor time in minutes and percentage of total. As you can see, maximum number of visitors spent between 0 to 10 minutes. And if you add up all these percentages, they'll come up to about 100%. So this is what is a histogram. There are no gaps between the bars. These actually represent the distribution of a particular item rather than representing different items on the same scale. So the histogram shows the distribution of variables. Bar charts are used to compare variables. Histogram plots quantitative data, whereas bar chart plots categorical data. In a histogram, the bars can't be reordered, whereas the bars can be reordered in a bar chart. So these are important differences to understand for author who is just starting out to appropriately use in the appropriate context a bar chart or a histogram. Another type of figure that is commonly used is pie chart. Generally, pie charts are used to present parts of whole. For example, you can see that this is representing the proportion of population in 4 different regions of a country: north, east, south, and west. And all these should add up to a total of 100%. What are best practices for using pie charts? We shall subsequently discuss. So you can see the percentage that each region contributes to the revenue. And this can be more difficult to assess when you're using a bar chart. For example, here also the bars add up to 100, but here it's very obvious that north is almost 1.5 times a bigger contributor than the south or the west. When not to use a pie chart, for example, if you have just 2 categories, male and female gender, you don't want to use unnecessarily a pie chart to represent this. You could easily represent this with a few words in the text rather than wasting one full figure, which really doesn't add much to the rest of the paper. So if you have multiple bits of data being represented, let's say revenue by region in 2016 and revenue by region in 2017. Here, it's difficult to compare the annual increment in revenue or decrease in revenue between different sections of the country by comparing these two pie charts. It would be easier to have a look at it by looking at percentage of total revenue from the various regions in the form of a linear chart. So here a pie chart might not be the most appropriate way of doing it. Very often you can create these three-dimensional pie charts. These look nice and you might find it attractive, particularly as a young author, but they might be problematic. For example, in this three-dimensional pie chart, which one of these slices actually represents a larger data point? Is it 1 or is it 2? If we go by what the figure actually says, 2 is 15% and 1 is 13%, whereas 2, despite being bigger than 1, actually appears much smaller on the three-dimensional pie chart. Why is that? Because there is spatial disorientation. The distal portion of the three-dimensional pie chart appears smaller than it actually is. Hence, it is preferable not to use three-dimensional pie charts. Wherever you're using pie charts, it's best to use two-dimensional pie charts. And also, when you have so many different categories, it might not be a good idea to use a pie chart because the reader can often get confused or lost. Now, you can also demonstrate statistical tests and figures. For example, this was an experiment from a published paper wherein patients with a form of large vessel vasculitis called as Takayasu arteritis were compared with control subjects for T helper 17 cells in their peripheral blood, serum interleukin 17 and serum interleukin 23. And if you look at the legend of the figure, it describes what was done and it briefly describes the methodology, and it represents the difference between these by using a Mann-Whitney test to generate a p-value. So here you can see that the p-value for the comparison between patients and controls for Th17 cells and serum IL-17 was less than 0.001 and was 0.007 for IL-23. So you can also demonstrate statistical results in figures rather than just representing the scatter plots. However, it's better to avoid overdoing a statistical representation. Let's say you had 4 different groups. You don't want 4 plus 3 plus 2 plus 1 or 10 different comparisons to be presented in a single figure. It's best to limit oneself to the main major comparisons that you want to bring forth. Another common plot that you come across is the box and whisker plot. What does this represent? This represents at the extremes the minimum and the maximum of the distribution. The interquartile range, that is between Q1 to Q3 in the box, and the line in the box represents the median. So this you can often superimpose onto a scatter plot, which gives you the idea of the distribution or the relationship between two different sets of variables. For example, this is a scatter plot between a writing score and a reading score. You can roughly see that with an increase in the writing score, there appears to be an increase in the reading score. And if you fit a best fit line here, it would come to approximately something like this. So this gives you an idea how these two variables are related to each other. Another common type of plot that you come across is a forest plot in a systematic review. Now, forest plots need to be carefully interpreted. Here, you are looking at the effect of drugs on a parameter called as the diffusion lung capacity for carbon monoxide in patients with systemic sclerosis. These are all randomized controlled trials of 3 types of drugs, conventional DMARDs, biological DMARDs, and targeted synthetic DMARDs. So here we are trying to plot the standardized mean difference for intervention compared to placebo. And here you can see that with these DMARDs, this is the standardized mean difference and this is the 95% confidence interval. So as you can see that this diamond represents the subgroup analysis for the pooled subgroup analysis for conventional DMARDs. This diamond represents the pooled subgroup analysis for biological DMARDs, and this for targeted synthetic DMARDs, 3 separate categories of drugs. And when you combine all the 3 of them, you get this common diamond, which shows a standardized mean difference of 0.31. That is an increase in DLCO with the treatment compared to placebo. What is a standardized mean difference? A standardized mean difference is something that you use to compare across studies when you have the mean difference divided by the standard deviation. So since you're normalizing it to the standard deviation, you can compare this reading across studies and across different scores that these studies may have used. Although here obviously the percentage improvement in DLCO is what has been seen. So as you can see, for each of these represent the mean with the 95% confidence intervals. And for each of the 3 drugs, the pooled estimate is crossing the line of no difference. But when you combine all the 3, the pooled difference is not crossing the line of no difference, which means that there is possibly a small but statistically significant difference at the 5% level of confidence interval. Further, you need to see how homogeneous or heterogeneous this data set is. For example, in conventional DMARDs, if you compare the confidence intervals for each of the drugs, you can see at some point or the other, they're overlapping. Whereas for biological DMARDs, you can see these segments are not at all overlapping with this. So there is quite a bit of heterogeneity here. Similarly, for targeted synthetic DMARDs, these 2 are not overlapping at all. So again, there is quite a bit of heterogeneity. Quantitatively, in a meta-analysis, you can assess heterogeneity by using a test called as the I-squared. And looking at the I-squared, a value less than 50% generally tells you that there is not much heterogeneity. Here we didn't appear to have much heterogeneity by eyeballing the plot, and you can see that I-squared is 30.5%. There isn't much heterogeneity statistically as well. Whereas here you can see the I-squared is 84.4%. And we had also thought that due to this non-overlapping segments, there was quite a bit of heterogeneity, and this confirms that. Furthermore, here the I-squared value is 77.4. Again, this confirms our observation that there was potentially heterogeneity due to non-overlap between this and that. So overall, although the estimate suggests potential effect on DLCO by using these 3 categories of drugs called as DMARDs, when you pool all the results together, there is quite a bit of heterogeneity in the data. So you need to interpret it with caution. So this is how you look at a forest plot in a meta-analysis and interpret it. Next comes the category of experimental figures. For example, Western blots. You should always present these in original, which means that you do not make any sort of adjustment to the images. Do not adjust contrast of image, and always have backup hard copies of the images in case doubts arise in future during review. Because of late, a number of instances have been reported of image manipulation, wherein Western blot figures have been manipulated by some authors who were not very meticulous or who were not very scrupulous. And these papers subsequently got into disrepute, and some of these papers were retracted as well. For example, This is a Western blot image showing various different blots. And it may not be very obvious that some of these blots are actually duplicated. But when you carefully observe, you can see that these two are actually duplicated. You can see that this and this are almost identical. You can see this and this are identical. Similarly, you can see a lot of similarity in many of the other plots. So these were meant to represent each different sets of experiments, but they were not genuine images, and this paper was subsequently retracted. Therefore, figure manipulation, particularly in cases of Western blot plots, is very important to avoid. And sometimes figure manipulation may be as naive as just changing the contrast of the image from the native image. If that is changed differentially in different sets of images, then there may appear to be a difference when there is actually no difference. So please be very careful while presenting your Western blots, and always have these slides in original available with you, and avoid any sort of modification to the original figure when you put it in your paper. Do not try to make this black and white image into a slightly color background, or any sort of naive manipulation also should be avoided. Otherwise, it may create problems later on, and you may be asked to explain. A letter may be written to your institute to explain, or in the worst case, your paper, after it has been published, even after many years, may be retracted. Coming to tables. Tables help summarize large amounts of information in a concise manner. Basically, the structure of a table has these various components. This is how a table appears like. So these are rows and these are columns. And the structure has the table number as in the paper, the title, the table main per se, as well as explanatory footnotes to help understand what is written or what is presented in the table. Tables should always be referred to in the text, and this also holds true for figures. Tables should stand alone. They should have a title as well as explanatory footnotes, and should be summarized but not extensively repeated in the text. This is sometimes confusing to understand for young authors. What do you mean by summarized but not extensively repeated in the text? This is an actual paper written by us, which assessed exposure to rheumatology during undergraduate and postgraduate medical training in India. And here you can see that these are the various questions or options, and these are the answers to the various options amongst the survey participants. What are the percentages and what were the total number of responses with respect to all the participants. So for example, if you see here, this is the text that summarizes this table. Most of the physicians felt they had learned a major chunk of their rheumatology training at the postgraduate level or after completing basic postgraduate training. Nearly 3/4 professed that they had little or no exposure to rheumatology as undergraduate medical students. So going back to table 2, how much rheumatology were you exposed to as an undergraduate? As you can see, none or minimal approximately accounts for 75%. So what have I written in the text? I have written as nearly 3/4 professed that they had little or no exposure to rheumatology as undergraduate medical students. I have not repeated this figure of 75% because that's there in the table. Whereas 56.717% rated their exposure to rheumatology at basic postgraduate level as adequate. So here they have in the postgraduate level, I have just taken this single figure and quoted it here. I have not extensively repeated each and every one of these items in the text. Now you see this line, most respondents, 96.32, felt a need for greater quantum of rheumatology training at postgraduate level. If you see the question, there are so many figures here, but I've just picked up one summary figure to summarize this entire answer. And the details can be referred to by the person when he goes back to the table. Here again, you see I have used some abbreviations like UG, PG, and people may assume that UG means undergraduate and PG means postgraduate. But even when using such common abbreviations, I have to explain them in the footnote. I cannot assume that people will understand what abbreviations I have used. Generally, it's best to avoid using uncommon abbreviations, and if you're using uncommon abbreviations, you must explain them in the footnote of the table as well as in the text whenever you use the abbreviation for the first time. So common mistakes in tables are lack of footnotes, lack of expansion of abbreviations used, inability to understand what a particular measure has been presented, whether it's a median or a mean, inability to understand what statistical test has been used. For example, this is another table taken from a paper written by us on the use of methotrexate, azathioprine, and leflunomide in patients with Takayasu arthritis. As you can see, this is a very busy table. It's not easy to read. It summarizes a lot of information. And there are certain figures here. For example, follow-up period. Follow-up period is written as 2.8 years, 1.3 to 4.8. You can see A. A refers to what was given in the original paper, mean and range. Whereas certain other places I have used B, mean and standard deviation. And certain other places I have used C for median, because different studies have represented different figures. How do I put it across to the audience in a single table in a manner that they can still understand it? If I start writing mean, standard deviation, median, it takes a lot of space. Already this table is quite busy, and it's even going to get even busier when I put all mean, standard deviation and everything inside the table. So I summarize this information by use of footnote and by use of these superscripts A, B, C, so that people can understand simply by going back to the footnote what measure was exactly presented in the original paper. This is a table summarizing a review of literature. So most of the time, I don't have the original data that I can calculate a common measure, say a mean for all or a median for all. So since different measures are used in different papers, I have to present it as it was. And for ease of understanding, I can use this kind of a representation. And here again, you see there are lots of abbreviations: MTX, LEF, EZA, then you have ESR, CRP. All of these abbreviations are expanded in the footnotes. Even common abbreviations like ESR or CRP, which anybody would understand, it is best to expand it. Don't assume that somebody would understand an abbreviation. Make it explicit so that people cannot misinterpret your information. This is another table taken from the same paper. This summarizes outcomes studied in Takayasu arthritis patients using conventional DMARDs. Now you can see this clinical outcomes increase, NA, star, double star. What do these mean? Sometimes it may not be very clear. The actual table has this long footnote attached to it, wherein you can see I have clearly shown here, this indicates an improvement, this indicates no change, this indicates worsening. I cannot assume that the reader would just understand by seeing my table. The purpose of communication is to be as explicit as you can be. And there is no limit to being as explicit as you can in your written communication or oral communication. Here you can see that where I have used a single star, these are composite outcomes where the ITAS 2010. Again, I have expanded this, what does ITAS 2010 means. And here the NIH score has been used. National Institutes of Health criteria has been used. Again, all abbreviations have to be expanded. This is to ensure that people can easily understand what your table is representing. Further, some extra information is written in the footnote. None of these studies had looked at effect of specific interventions mentioned above on quality of life. And here you can see that one of these studies included patients with giant cell arteritis also. So this, I have included this anomaly in the footnote so that it's very clear to somebody who's understanding or reading the table what it actually represents. Sometimes tables can have extensive notes. This is taken from a Cochrane review in 2013. 14 days of primary sepsis in people with Plasmodium vivax malaria. Results, and this is the large set of footnotes that accompany this table, detailing the various features that were presented in these different studies that have been pulled together. So extensive footnotes are a good thing to help people understand what you exactly meant, and these tables essentially will stand alone. You don't need to go back and read the rest of the text to understand what is written in the table. You can simply read the table and get an idea of the information being presented without reading the text in detail. One of the common mistakes that people make is undefined abbreviations, as I have told you. For example, RF and DM. Somebody might have written this in a paper. What does this mean? Does it mean renal failure in diabetes mellitus or respiratory failure in dermatomyositis? If it is an endocrinologist, he would think that it is renal failure in diabetes mellitus that is meant by RF and DM. If it is a rheumatologist, he will think of respiratory failure in dermatomyositis. But the information has to be explicit because these are entirely different topics. Never assume the reader will understand. You must be as explicit as possible. Another mistake that people make is not citing figures or tables in the text. This indicates a lack of professionalism in the author group and gives an overall poor impression. Furthermore, the reader is confused which section of the text the table and figure goes hand in hand with, that they can refer back and try to understand the table and figure. So please avoid doing this. Another mistake commonly made is placing results tables in the discussion. Tables can be placed in the discussion section of a research article. For example, if you're summarizing information derived from the literature, but it is inappropriate to put tables that represent actual results of original research in the discussion, because that should come in the results section, not in the discussion section. So placement of the table in the appropriate section is important. An introduction section or a discussion section may have a table or tables that summarize the relevant literature, but should not have tables that present the actual data that an original research article is looking at. That should come into the results section. Supplementary tables, these might not be essential for the full understanding of the study in question, and these can go in online supplementary material, but one should generally try to minimize the amount of information that is being presented in supplementary tables and try to put everything in the main tables. However, in certain instances where the word limit is being breached, say, for example, you're presenting a concise report, which is a concise version of an original article. In this case, you may have a significant limit on the number of tables. You can have 2 tables. Then you may present some additional non-important information as a supplementary table. Otherwise, it's best to avoid putting information in supplementary tables and try to put it all in the main text so that the reader can easily understand what is going on. Reproducing or adapting figures or tables is a common question that authors come across. Here it is important to seek permission of the copyright holder. Now, who is a copyright holder? If you look at models of publication, you have a subscription-based model or you have an open access. So the copyright holder differs based on whether the paper is published on a subscription-based model or on open access. For example, in this particular paper, as you can see, the symbol C represents the copyright. Here, the copyright rests with Springer Verlag GmbH, Germany. So if permission is being sought for reproduction of content in this paper, then I need to seek copyright permission from Springer Nature 2020, which owns this subsidiary company. On the other hand, if the article has been published as open access, for example, these two articles, copyright rests with the authors. So as long as you appropriately cite the information, you do not need to generally seek permission. Rarely, copyright may be mentioned as resting with the author only, and the paper may not be published as open access, in which case you can directly contact the author and seek permission for reproduction of the content. But please do not reproduce any content without seeking permission of the copyright holder. It is morally inappropriate, it is ethically inappropriate, and it is also legally inappropriate. So how to seek permission for reproducing copyrighted content? This is an article published in Rheumatology International. And if you see on the right side of the page, you have this rights and permissions. Generally, you would find this rights and permissions wherever there is copyrighted content available in any journal that is subscription based. So once you click this, it takes you here where you can click reprints and permissions. And now this takes you to a place called as rights link or something similar, where you can seek permission to reproduce copyrighted content. For example, a table that has previously been produced. You want to adapt that table, you want to modify the table. You must seek copyright to adapt or modify that table. Do not do this without seeking permission of the copyright holder. However, it is best to avoid trying to reproduce figures and tables. It's best to try to generate original figures and tables. To summarize, tables and figures should be carefully drafted. Avoid repetition between the text and figures or table. Critically analyze the need or not of a figure or table in the manuscript. Don't just present it for the sake of presenting it, and originality is highly recommended. With this, I would like to finish, and any questions are most welcome.
Dear Durga, thank you very much for your very informative and useful presentation. And I have one question to you. Which software do you use to draw graphics for your articles?
One can use, for original information, it's best to use a statistical software. I am learning to use Stata. Previously, I used to use SPSS or GraphPad. GraphPad particularly produces nice figures, but there are certain limitations. For example, for systematic reviews, one would need to use an advanced software like Stata or Revman if you are acquainted with it. And if I'm trying to present information, summarize information from the literature and generate a figure, then I would prefer to generate that figure using PowerPoint. There are other professional software as well, like eDraw Max is something I occasionally use. I have this software, but it is not free of cost. And it provides me a mechanism to generate good quality figures, particularly when I'm summarizing the information presented in the literature, like I had put that figure for copyright content. That is one that I have generated using PowerPoint. So PowerPoint is, most people have access to PowerPoint, so that can easily produce that kind of figures.
Thank you, dear Durga. Dr.
I have
Arman,
a question. Sorry.
from Professor Stoika, yes.
In which case the magazine can refuse in providing you with the original figure or table or whatever. Or they regularly give you such right, or they can refuse, say, okay, we don't want to give you a right to use the figure from paper published in our journal.
All right, so thank you for the question. Generally, people would want their information to be cited. So when you're reproducing a figure or a table, you are citing their articles. So that is something which people like. So generally people do not refuse permission, but if it is for a commercial purpose, they might ask you to pay some money. But generally for non-commercial scientific academic writing, they would not ask you for any money and they would just provide you a permission. However, it is best to avoid doing this. It is best to generate your own figures and tables from personal experience. And this would be my personal advice to all authors, that as far as possible, try to avoid reproducing figures and tables, because sometimes the line between ethical reproduction and plagiarism is very fine. You don't want to cross that line. You don't unnecessarily want to be in trouble. So for that purpose, I personally prefer not to reproduce figures or tables. And in one instance, I did feel a need to reproduce a table from a paper that I had published previously. Even then, since the copyright was transferred to the journal, I sought permission to adapt that table.
But
So you just need to be careful.
But sometimes there is a very complicated scheme of the mechanism of action, something like that. So reproducing, it's difficult, and preparing a new one is also a big deal, big work.
I agree, but I think it's worth the effort. That's what I would personally feel.
So Durga, is there any software for our participants to use to draw impressive figures?
PowerPoint, I think most people would have access to PowerPoint.
Yeah, based on your own experience, you drew impressive figures for your review articles. Did you use any specific software? What was the name of that specific software?
I have drawn all those figures using PowerPoint.
PowerPoint, okay.
So basically, you get experienced and you can learn how to do it. I mean, with time.
Durga, one more question from Dr. Vasil Lunchina. Is there a fee for obtaining copyright permission?
Generally not. If it is for an academic purpose, for scientific purpose, they generally don't charge you a fee. That's my experience. I think Dr. Arman may be able to give more information.
So
with his
it
experience.
depends on publisher. I know that some large publishers are generous and they allow to reproduce their figures. You probably know that the main large publishers, they are quite generous and they allow to reuse their figures. But many other emerging publishers or open access publishers, they, even if you ask them to reproduce their figures, they may charge you for that. So the best option is, of course, to draw your own figures. And for that, you need to know which software can be used for drawing impressive figures. Latika and you, Durga, use good software or even PowerPoint for drawing original, authentic figures. And our main advice today should be to use authentic figures instead of obtaining permission from publishers. And I know that many Indian authors often reproduce a number of figures, adapt a number of figures or drawings in their articles and officially, but you rightly mentioned that the line between adapted figures and plagiarism is blurred. So authors should use software to draw their own figures and be very careful with plagiarism, particularly when they use their own figures, Western blot images, and try to manipulate with these images. So it's an issue for editors, reviewers. They should spot some irregularities or should alert editors about any concerning issues. Thank you.
One comment from Dr. Lancina. I have had to pay a fee for reproducing a cartoon from Wall Street Journal. Also, I paid Queen Elizabeth a number of pounds to allow a Leonardo da Vinci figure from her collection to be reproduced in my book.
Durga, comment on that. That's really funny.
Well, yeah, I think maybe it was because it was the Wall Street Journal. It was a commercial paper rather than a scientific journal. That's why probably they charged money. Yeah, I think it depends from publisher to publisher.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Armin, Dr. Olena.
Thank you, Durga, for your excellent presentation. And I'm very happy to introduce our next speaker, who is also a regular contributor to our webinars, Dr. Armen, who is an editor of several influential journals. And today he is going to share his rich editors and authors' experience with us regarding to presentations on scientific conferences, yes, and also
Olena,
some new things in writing articles, yes.
Okay, Olena, thank you for introduction and your kind words. Because Dr. Durga talked about graphics, how to edit, how to use proper graphics in articles. I'm going to continue, and because we have a number of new participants, I'll start by discussing writing issues and then go to presentation issues, if you allow.
Yes, of course, it's up to you.
Okay,
you can share your screen with us, yes?
Yes. So I'm trying basic. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can see your screen, yes. Yes, and now we can see your presentation.
Good. So we were fortunate to have Dr. Durga's presentation today, who discussed a number of issues related to proper use of graphics, proper interpretation of tables, graphics used for systematic reviews. So my task today is just to inform and convey some important messages to our newcomers. And today I will start discussing, I'll start my presentation by discussing our joint publication with Dr. Durga. COVID-19 pandemic posed a number of issues to scholarly community. And in the beginning of March, we decided to analyze issues related to COVID-19 in the field of rheumatology. And we were fortunate to publish these influential articles. Our participants should know how to deal with not just infographics, not just with tables, other types of graphics, but also with graphics employed by social media. Here you see donut ring used by altmetric.com, and our researchers, our participants should also know the meaning of donut ring, the meaning of altmetric.com reports, particularly related to a number of tweets on our articles, number of Mendeley users. You see, this article is authored by me, by Olina, by Dr. Misra, and so far, over the past few months, the article has been published, cited by about 100 other authors. It's of course impressive number, but another impressive figure is number of Mendeley users who bookmarked this article, roughly 600 Mendeley users. So it's an impressive number. We should also pay attention which countries are interested in our articles, and usually users from US, from Western world, tweet and express their concerns, express their opinion on social media. So we should also learn how to interpret this type of data. We should also pay attention to number of downloads or accesses. So article has been accessed nearly 30,000 times. It's an impressive number, and these type of articles are quite useful. We should try hard to write articles of interest to global readership, and we should also pay attention to users who immediately respond to our articles, Twitter users or social media users. Okay, we discussed with Dr. Latika Gupta how to deal with social media infographics, and now I am going to discuss how to write articles based on recommendations of global editorial associations like International Committee of Medical Journal Editors, Council of Science Editors, World Association of Medical Editors, and also in line with ethics guidance of Committee on Publication Ethics. So, and also Equator Network standards, and few points about European Medical Writers Association, how to deal with writing issues, how to use polished English in our articles. Our Eastern European authors should be well skilled in drafting their articles in understandable English instead of writing articles in their mother tongue and then translating their articles into English. So there are two main sets of guidelines. Guidance from International Committee of Medical Journal Editors and Council of Science Editors. Soon we'll have guidance from Ukrainian Council of Science Editors, and Professor Stoika is president of that association. We should ask him to share generously his experience of writing articles, editing journals, and I'm sure that Eastern European authors will benefit a lot from his guidance, from words of wisdom of all scholars membering Ukrainian Council of Science Editors. So global editorial associations like International Committee of Medical Journal Editors regularly update their guidelines, recommendations for writing articles and editing journals. And some of the main points relate to authorship. I'm not going to discuss authorship criteria today, but you should know about mandatory criteria of authorship. Then there is a set of points which journals can be judged as predatory or poor quality journals, how we should deal with statistics as authors, reviewers, and editors. Our reviewers and editors should pay attention to statistical data reporting and also use of proper graphs like tables or pie charts for reporting statistics. And also one of the main points related to drafting articles, interpreting articles, evaluating articles relate to references. We should be very careful which references we process and cite. So for writing articles, particularly by PhD candidates, by novice authors, the most important part is to experiment with reviewing different types of articles. There are a number of articles which can be evaluated as review articles, editorials or mini reviews, authoritative reviews, recommendations of scholarly associations or professional associations. And I'm sure today's participants, particularly from Bulgaria, are interested in writing recommendations of their association. Common type of articles is narrative reviews, but with systematic approach to search strategies. Also, a number of authors, particularly joining members or participants of today's webinar, are authors of qualitative systematic reviews, which are registered with Prospero Registry. So qualitative systematic reviews process primary sources and report data as a systematic review without meta-analysis. Quantitative systematic reviews often usually go with meta-analysis. So I hope that today's participants will also think about writing hypotheses. All PhD candidates are authors who should formulate their scientific hypothesis at the start of their research. So for that, they need to know how to structure hypothesis. First of all, they should have background based on available literature. Then they should formulate their scientific hypothesis, analyze available evidence, then think and report clinical implications and, of course, ethical implications. Let's say vaccine use or vaccine repurposing for COVID-19 in the era of COVID-19. Whether non-specific vaccine therapies may have undesirable consequences. This type of ethical issues should be discussed, should be included in scientific hypothesis. So I hope that some of you will also formulate standalone scientific hypothesis. But for most type of research, today's participants particularly should adhere to Equator Network. This network was created by Oxford University researchers, by Douglas Altman and other big names in medical statistics. So original research papers usually have to draft it based on certain standards. And most of these standards are available from Equator Network. Here you see how to structure systematic reviews based on PRISMA checklist and PRISMA flowchart. We initially retrieve thousands of articles from different bibliographic databases. And then at the end, we have 10, 20, 30 articles for our final analysis, qualitative for systematic reviews, or quantitative for systematic reviews with meta-analysis. I was one of authors of recommendations on drafting narrative reviews, and the main point of these recommendations, this set of recommendations, was to have full access to bibliographic databases. Recommendations were published in 2011, but until now, most of the points presented in this article are valid, and I hope that today's participants, those who are going to write narrative reviews, will also adhere to recommendations of this landmark publication. So all systematic reviews should be registered with specific registry, International Prospective Register of Systematic Reviews run by York University, called Prospero. Here I presented some examples of systematic reviews in rheumatology, physical medicine and rehabilitation, and pediatric rheumatology. You see that numbers differ. So there are some academic disciplines active in publishing systematic reviews, whereas other disciplines, emerging disciplines, slow in understanding importance of systematic reviews. During today's webinar, Dr. Durga touched upon the importance of plot graphics for systematic reviews, and he discussed in detail how to interpret, how to discuss heterogeneity in systematic reviews based on analyzing graphics of systematic reviews. So his experience is vast in this field, and I hope that all our participants who are going to write systematic reviews learned message from his presentation as well. So most authors usually start their career by writing narrative reviews. For narrative reviews, we need to choose an impressive title, and usually this type of articles have to be formulated by seasoned authors, and these authors should also put question mark in the titles to attract attention, to increase number of downloads, social media attention, and ultimately also number of citations. So as editor and reviewer, I often ask my authors to revise their titles. For narrative reviews, I ask to include relevant keywords. For authors of original papers, original research articles, I ask to include study design as second part of their articles. So you see an influential review article consisting of just one buzzword, one keyword, osteoarthritis. And this article published by Lancet, Lancet is a big journal, is a top scientific journal in the field of evidence-based medicine. And these all seminar review articles published by Lancet are well mentioned on social media, well discussed on social media, but also well cited. So you see again, donut ring from altmetric.com, social media information aggregator, and you see different parts of this donut ring, mainly colored blue. So representing Twitter activity, Twitter tweets. So this type of information is important, and PhD candidates, researchers may also use a donut ring of articles in their field of interest and rank articles based on altmetric attention scores. Title of a systematic review. You see, authors of these systematic review put several relevant keywords put question mark, and in the second part of their systematic review, they highlighted that their study is a systematic review. So all systematic reviews should be titles should be formulated like this. How we structure our narrative review articles. We should move away from old-styled or Soviet style of writing articles without any structuring narrative reviews, without any subheadings. So nowadays it's important to have several subheadings for review articles, and that structuring starts from abstracts. Even for narrative reviews, we should have structured abstracts consisting of background, methods of literature searches, main results, and conclusions. And of course, we should know about keywords. In introduction, we should justify novelty of our narrative reviews. And of course, we should divide text of our narrative reviews into several subheadings, several subsections to make our review articles attractive and readable. Here you see an example how we retrieve keywords of articles we read and process. So I also encourage all our medical, biomedical, veterinary scientists to familiarize with MESH or medical subject headings terms of National Library of Medicine of US, and know at least 10, 20 keywords related to their field of interest, and process these structured keywords for searches of relevant literature. We usually deal with Scopus and Web of Science searches. These are global platforms or databases for comprehensive and systematic searches for narrative reviews, for PhD dissertations and other small dissertations. So we should know how to work with these large databases. We should also know about some specialist databases, Medline, Excerpta Medica, Cochrane Library, Global Health, PsycInfo, etc., etc. So for all those who have difficulties with accessing subscription-based articles, DOAJ, or Directory of Open Access Journals, offers free search strategy and free navigation to open access articles. So at the moment, this registry covers about 16,000 journals, peer-reviewed journals, open access journals, and our participants may also benefit from searches through DOAJ platform. Why we should not use Google Scholar for comprehensive and systematic searches in our narrative and systematic reviews? Because Google Scholar is just search engine. It's not bibliographic database. It's not controlled by experts in different academic disciplines. There are no structured keywords like mesh keywords linked to articles covered by Google Scholar. Google Scholar indiscriminately covers all types of literature, including grey literature, non-peer-reviewed literature, predatory journals visible on Google. So our novice authors using Google Scholar for comprehensive and systematic searches may retrieve articles without understanding that these articles are not peer-reviewed, contain misleading information or information not checked by experts coming from predatory or poor quality journals. So Google Scholar is indiscriminate in covering sources. So there are also some concerns about differences in search results across countries. So let's say in US, Google Scholar retrieval results may differ from retrieval results in Iran, in Eastern Europe. So this is why reproducibility of searches through Google Scholar vary widely. We cannot rely on Google Scholar searches for our high quality articles. So there is an important point as well. Google Scholar retrieves articles based on their usage or traffic. So initially, Google Scholar displays articles with high citations, high use, or high traffic, and we can see mainly articles which are widely used, but not always useful for our articles. So we should be very careful with Google Scholar searches, particularly for good quality articles. When we structure review articles, we should pay attention whether it's narrative review or systematic review. We should process information from at least 2 bibliographic databases, evidence-based databases such as Medline, Cochrane databases, and we should also set deadlines in search strategies. We should not cite unpublished or retracted poor quality articles. We should stick to recommendations on recommended and unacceptable references. Let's say most recommended references for our articles are those with digital object identifiers. We may also write case studies. These are at the base of evidence-based pyramid, and novice authors, researchers usually start their career by writing case studies and then summarize information in their case-based reviews. Clinical case reports are usually convey information or points for clinical specialists, practitioners. All case studies should adhere to CARE or case report checklist or standard registered on Equator network. Those who are writing case-based reviews should adhere to CARE standard and may also refer to PRISMA flowchart, PRISMA checklist of reporting reviews. So they should combine CARE and PRISMA standards. For original research papers, IMRAD structure is still valid, and most original research articles should be structured accordingly. Introduction should convey message, justify aim, and should contain a number of relevant keywords. Methods should inform readers where and when the study conducted, should provide details of modified or new methods used in their studies. Statistical analysis should be based on certain standards. Particularly, authors should pay attention how their parameters are distributed. In discussion and conclusion, they should summarize results and should pay attention to limitations. Eastern European authors often omit these section limitations because of fear of criticism, but in Western world, limitations section is common, and it's normal practice to criticize authors' methods, results, and it's normal. In footnotes, authors should inform readers how their study was funded, Funding information is now tracked by bibliographic databases. Journal editors should also ask about grant funding, funding by ministries of science and education, and also about ORCID identifiers, informative with public information. These type of identifiers are important for visibility of research articles. Now, although Dr. Durga discussed in detail a number of issues related to graphics, tables, I also should provide some information to today's participants, particularly related to tables. So tables are mandatory for original research papers. If you have a number of data that you cannot report in pie charts, bar charts, other types of graphics, then you should think about tables. When you draw columns and rows in your tables, you should have numerous rows. And you should also distinguish your tables from box. In box, there is only one column, one row, big box without any divisions. So for original research papers, it's desirable to have tables rather than boxes. So if you insert table and you have only one or two rows, it's also irrational. So avoid this type of practice. In your tables, you should have numerous, more than two rows. At the same time, there is also another extreme. If you insert table and you have hundreds of rows, particularly for systematic reviews, it's better to ask editor to use this type of tables for as supplementary materials, supplementary table, not as part of main text. Also, when our authors present parameters in main or first column, that they should also pay attention to units of measurements. Internationally acceptable, or let's say EU PAC for chemical or laboratory parameters, internationally acceptable units. Each journal instructions should convey information about units acceptable to that journal. Let's say American or US-based journals may report units in grams per liter, or milligrams per liter, whereas in European journals, acceptable units are millimole per liter. Titles should also be concise and informative. Vague titles for tables are unacceptable, and as reviewers and editors, you should pay attention whether authors formulated titles of their tables correctly. In footnotes, Dr. Durga mentioned about importance of footnotes. You should, as authors, you should disclose all abbreviations, and tables should stand alone. So for that, you need to disclose all abbreviations, and you should also have some explanations about your table. And of course, avoid duplicating the same data, presenting the same data in the text and tables. You see, irrational type of presenting table. The table is published by a well-known journal, a lot of textual information. So this type of information can be also presented in the text, but not in the table. Tables are for numerical or eye-catching information without delving deeper, without reading main text, or text in tables. Some of irrational examples are presented also here. I take the liberty to criticize Indian Journal of Rheumatology, friendly journal, but still I see that these type of tables could be better presented, better edited. Here is, let's say, you probably, some of our authors will spot mistakes or irrationality in this type of articles. Let's say table 3, why the authors decided to present this type of information with one row in a table. They could simply discuss it in the text without inserting or drawing table. Another example from a journal, Viedom Stylikarsky, Polish journal, where most of our Eastern European or Ukrainian authors publish. Table 1, no any information, no any footnotes. The title not understandable, and there is no any explanation in footnotes. This type of tables we never or rarely see in good quality journals. So a few words about radiology images. Some of our today's participants are experts in internal medicine, and they often read or publish radiology images. All images in a series should have the same magnification. Let's say in the same article, magnification of CT scans or MRI scans should be the same. Radiographs, on radiographs, readers should distinguish bone whites on dark background and patients right to the observer left. CT and MRI employ view from the feed. So readers should have clear understanding what they see, and if it is necessary, sometimes footnotes of radiology images should also inform. General message or basic message to all those who use radiology images: do not display patient names, cut university or hospital names, or crop unnecessary parts on your radiology images. Here you see good quality images, CT scans of patients with vasculitis and COVID-19. Everything is clear except arrows. You see arrows, black arrows. Probably on this slide you can see these arrows clearly, but on dark background we should use white arrows. Here you see small Korean Journal of Medicine, Korean journal, non-Anglophone journal, but they probably have a graphics designer, graphics editor who is who is good at graphics, ultrasound images, and interpretation of these images. This is why probably we see white arrows on dark background of ultrasound images. So photographs and biopsy microphotos. Always mask eyes or avoid identifying your patients. It's also an issue for social media content. Always try to be careful with displaying patient images, even from published articles, even from New England Journal of Medicine or other top-ranked journals. So it's better to use graphics than photographs on social media. Obtain written informed consent if you are going to unmask your patient's identity and display images, their photos on social media and in your articles. When you use photographs, you should identify skin elements, oral affection, body parts, large parts, and you again may use arrows to inform our readers, your readers, that you spotted something interesting on your photographs. And again, magnification should be the same throughout your article. And if you use microphotographs of biopsies, you should pay attention to magnification and also staining by hematoxylin, eosin, or other stains used for your biopsy samples. When you use images and videos, you should pay attention to technical specifications of your images, photos, radiology images. Usually we use TIFF image format for photos, large photos, EPC for drawings or graphs with small particles, tiny lines, to increase resolution of your drawings. And JPEG file format is usually is universal. It's a last resort. When you cannot use TIFF and you have JPEG file, it's also acceptable for most journals that may reuse your JPEG file format. PPT files can be used, and today Dr. Durga also emphasized the use of PowerPoint graphics for our articles. You can use, but for large elements, large characters, big characters that after archiving by journal editors still will be visible. When you use color images, 30 dots per inch or DPI are acceptable, whereas if you have drawings with small particles, small elements, high resolution is important and is advisable, 60 DPI. And these type of technical specifications will be evaluated by, let's say, PubMed Central technical editors. So if you are going to apply for PubMed Central archiving, this type of information is essential. So be very careful when you process photos, images, figures for articles in your journals, if you are going to apply to PubMed Central. And of course, for video articles, I know that Dr. Olena is good at images, video articles, video supplementary materials based on Zoom platform. MP4 or AVI formats are acceptable. We are going to see a number of video articles in the near future, particularly in the time of COVID-19 pandemic. And I strongly encourage you as authors to refer to a good example of New England Journal of Medicine, the journal, top scientific journal, publishing articles with texts and video items with as supplementary files in MP4 format. All our PhD candidates should know about image banks, particularly those working with blood cells, with organ images. So there are some freely available image banks. I usually process images from Sevier, medical art image banks, and use separate elements and then draw figures myself are original, authentic. But there are also other free image banks used by Elsevier and other large publishers. Mostly these image banks are used for drawing images in hematology, clinical rheumatology. So some of our today's participants may also use elements from image banks for drawing their authentic figures. Now about graphs. Today we discuss several software for drawing graphs. I personally strongly recommend SPSS statistical package to PhD candidates and those who work with surveys, who run survey studies. I encourage to use SurveyMonkey platform to generate graphs. Latika Gupta, our keynote speaker, is good at drawing graphs based on SurveyMonkey software. Other points are understandable, so we should avoid copying items from internet. Even with official permission, it's better to use our own authentic graphs. We should know different types of graphs to use proper graphs for our articles. Graphs are preferable than tables when we see certain trends or impressive figures, changes in numbers. So in that case, we should use graphs rather than tables. And we may use line diagrams, bar graphs when we compare 2 or 3 groups, pie charts for percentages, particularly in survey studies. We often use charts depicting percentages. Histograms are used for depicting distribution of our parameters. It's a basic form of graphs, histogram. And of course, we should again have reflective or informative titles and standalone legends of graphs explaining all elements, all abbreviations used on our graphs. And of course, in one article, we may use no more than 3-4 graphical images. And all these graphical images should tell story. If we use a series of images or graphs, these images or mixture of images and graphs should tell a story. So you see, good example of histogram by Professor Douglas Altman, late Douglas Altman, late statistician, founder of Equator Network. And I refer to British Medical Journal article. You see histogram and graph that depicts the same information in linear figure. So both depict the same thing, and both these graphs or figures complement each other. An example from Dr. Latika's recent publication in Oxford University Press Journal. You see, she also operated with percentages. She presented pie chart and also bar chart, horizontal bar charts, again dealing with percentages in descending order. So Latika Gupta is an expert in graphics, and I catch the main point just looking on this infographic or figure of her article. An example from my own practice, from my own article, information about X and Y publication activity over years, and you see again simple graph, but informing our readers about trend. I couldn't draw or insert table to inform our readers about annual publication activity or annual citation activity. This type of figure is more preferable than table. Some not so good examples. You see, authors used percentages in their tables, but they could use pie charts to depict percentages instead of inserting or drawing tables. All these three tables are irrational and could be replaced by pie chart. I think that reviewers could ask authors to replace. I understand that it's a daunting task to advise something to authors, particularly big names in research, in scientific research, but our participants, our reviewers should strive to work closely with authors and replace this type of irrational tables with pie charts. A story, I told you about story, and you see in this journal, good journal, and I learned a lot from this Iranian journal over the past 3 decades. You see a case of trichobezoar in a patient with psychiatric or psychological disorder, trichotillomania, the patient with stomach perforation. On X-ray, we see free gas. On the diaphragm, we see also surgical operation, and we see also that these patients' photo also. All these images relate to each other. So this one is final for this part of our webinar. Any questions, any comments? I am open to your questions and comments.
Dear Arman, thank you very much for your excellent presentation. And we have one question from our participants. Should we ask patients about permission for publication of their photos, for example, in patient with skin diseases?
Yes, we always should obtain written informed consent from our patients if we approach them and try to to capture images of their skin elements, even if these images or photos do not display or do not unmask their identity. For good journals, let's say New England Journal of Medicine, it's always it's mandatory to have written informed consent, even for skin elements. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. And next question, as an editor, could you provide us with the main steps how to publish article in good journal without index journal, without any publication charge? Is it possible?
That question not so relevant to this presentation, but yes, our authors should try to target platinum open access journals, journals that do not charge any publication charges. And there are a number of platinum open access journals, particularly Croatian Medical Journal, archived by PubMed Central, and indexed by a number of bibliographic databases that do not charge publication charges. So it's better to target platinum open access journals.
Thank you very much. Let's move to your next presentation.
Okay. So my next presentation is about effective presentation for a scientific meeting. Today, some of our participants, mentors, chairperson are going to celebrate Christmas Eve and tomorrow Christmas. So this is why it's a bit, it's a presentation to just cheer you up. And this is why I decided to choose this particular topic. So some quotes on how we deliver our presentations. Designing a presentation without an audience in mind is like writing a love letter and addressing it to whom it may concern. So if you are designing PPT presentation, you should always remember, you should always bear in mind that your audience should process information, and not all participants are familiar with standards of presenting. Second quote is again from Google. The whole purpose is of our presentations is to enable people learn. Our mission is not to transmit information, but to transform our learners. Our series of webinars are aimed at transforming mentality, clinical mentality, or scholarly writing skills of our participants instead of just transmitting information. And finally, final quote, our participants may forget what we said, but they will never forget how we made them feel. So today, some of our participants are a bit relaxed, in a good mood. So I hope that messages today of our final webinar will stimulate interest of our participants and cheer them up. So you see that I quoted just 3 quotes. It's a rule of thumb. We usually process 3-4 quotes, no more than 3 or 4 examples. Moderation in everything. So also I refer to this more scholarly quote. Although some of the success is in the content of our PPT presentation, the rest lies in the speaker's skills in transmitting information to the audience. It's a golden rule. So our speakers, those who are going to present something at conference meetings, should learn how to present, how to deal with infographics, how to deal with PPT presentations, and how to draw PPT graphics on PowerPoint software files. Before your presentation, you should understand that your presentation should also attract at least one question. If there is no question to your presentation, if your participants are shy and do not ask questions, so feedback of your presentation not so positive. So you should strive hard to attract relevant questions, comments, and to stimulate interest of your audience. Always desirable to recheck videos and to have no more than one video file in your PPT presentations. More videos distract attention and your audience will be distracted. Font size, it should be large enough. And if you use large fonts, you convey strong messages. If you use small fonts and if you overload information on one slide, you again distract attention. You should distinguish font for headings and fonts for main text in your presentations. Opening slides should have title, your name, usually date of presentation. Always acknowledge your audience, moderator, organizing institutions, because they spend a lot of time. They help a lot, and they are unsung heroes of our scholarly work, our presentations. We should always credit our supporters. Second, slides in clinical presentations usually disclose conflicts of interests, relationships to pharmaceutical industry. And third slide should be about aims, why we present something. All presentations should have at least 3 or 4 main messages. More than 4 messages should be divided into several parts and should be properly explained. Limit lines or rows in your slides, because participants usually pay attention to 3 or 4 lines. Of course, in the time of COVID-19 or in the time of video recording, we may ask our participants to watch our presentations, recorded presentations after or offline, and they may read all lines, delve deeper into lines, but for online presentations or real or live presentations, 3-4 lines is enough. And of course, you should add impressive or eye-catching diagram, video, graph in your presentation to make it more sophisticated, more impressive for your audience. How you divide information? Introduction, usually 10%. There is no need to have long historical overviews or long introductions, introductory slides without graphics. These type of slides are not interesting and again distract attention. Main body, usually 60% of contains 60% information, and conclusion 1/3 of your presentation with strong, usually take-home messages. How we start our presentations? Please recheck your presentation a day before or a few hours before your presentation. Third slide should always bear aims, and readers should understand why your presentations are unique, why others cannot do the same. Do not pretend in your presentations and do not try to suppress your audience and try to pretend that you know everything and you know better than your audience. Sometimes after your presentations, your audience know more than you. So treat your audience as your equals. And sometimes it is also worthwhile to remember names of your participants. Let's say Olha, Christina, Olena, etc. And if you arrange your presentation face-to-face, you should always scan your audience. You should pay attention who are following you, who are sleeping, and who are just irritated and cannot tolerate information flow. Why names are important? Because education is always student-centered or personalized. So this is why we should ask Olena or Yelena Bondarenko or Olha Machovska, Professor Pankiv and other participants, Svetoslav Georgiev, to follow us attentively and learn some messages. Our presentations, even online presentations, should be interactive. So you have a bar for chart option, and you may ask questions, comments, share your positivism throughout this webinar. So you should be more active. When you deliver, again, if you have 5, 10, 20 minutes for your PPT presentation, stick to time limitations. 30 to 60 seconds per slide, no more. Comment your slides, not just read. No need to read all lines. Sometimes readers catch information even without your comments. Speak to everyone, all participants attending your webinar. Let's say today, I know that Nikolai Stoilov, Vladimira Boyajieva, Svetoslav Georgiev are attending from Bulgaria. I know those who attend from Ternopil State National Medical University. So I know that today's webinar is tailored to their interest. And I know that they have some difficulties with publishing articles, with designing impressive PPT presentations. So I hope that by following us, by being with us today, or viewing our presentation offline afterwards, they will learn some important messages. And of course, though eye contact is missing today, I cannot see your eyes, I cannot see your emotions throughout these presentations, but I know that most of you are following us, and I know that most of you are catching main points of our presentations. During presentations, always desirable to use cartoons, jokes. It's difficult to use jokes if you have when you have non-Anglophone audience and your talk is in English, British, American English. So in this case, you may use funny cartoons, amusing cartoons to attract interest instead of having jokes. The same can be used for your essays, opinion pieces, or editorials. Avoid, of course, explicit content, embarrassing content in your presentations and articles, horror, politically incorrect, homophobic content. Avoid using politically incorrect terms. Limit negativism, negative comments, negative attitudes should be limited. The same refers to articles, reviewer comments, articles, negative articles. And always any scholarly work should contain question. These presentations in particular contain one important question: why we should make our presentations eye-catching, impressive, and all these question marks should have answers. In introduction to your presentations, you should have basic information without overloading with technical terms, professional terms. think about non-expert audience. Do not scare your audience with unfamiliar, sophisticated terms, even if you are good at statistics, good at English. Try to use understandable and clearly articulated words. And remember that presentations should always be positively designed. Always think that there are some who are busy or who are sleepy clinicians, busy clinicians, or some of participants who are attending webinar, but they are enjoying the relaxed atmosphere. So always try to keep all your participants awakened. Audio visual materials are important, and today we mentioned that pictures speak volumes. This is why we should have more graphs, more cartoons. Drawing cartoons requires professional skills, and some of these skills require also artwork learning. So, but once you reach art level of drawing cartoons, taking photos, you may enrich your articles, journals with impressive graphical materials. All those who are preparing presentations for webinars, for in-person or online presentations, should also know that some journals, digitized journals, have also PowerPoint slides, and you can easily download these slides instead of drawing de novo. Main body of your presentation should be divided into subsections. Each section should have at least one important message. Spend time wisely and discuss difficult points instead of spending more time or soft questions, soft issues. Repeat time after time difficult points or points that are necessary to memorize, to enforce in practice. So my main concern, my main point is to use more graphics, to use proper software to draw impressive graphics. So use proper software. Always refer to your own experience when you draw graphics, design presentations. Try to upgrade your practice. Invite scholars to discuss some of issues after presentation. Let's say today, I know that some participants will start writing articles. Vladimira, Svetoslav, Nikolai Stoilov, Olena, and others. Professor Pankiv will think about his journal, how to upgrade it and to reach higher level. So I encourage you to contact me afterwards, after this presentation, and continue our cooperation. In conclusion of the presentation, again, you should try to limit number of take-home messages, 3, 4 maximum. And you should always bear in mind that initially you had certain aims, certain agenda. Again, recall your agenda and try to have points or take-home messages related to your agenda. Specify some of limitation. Today, I'm limited in time and I cannot cover all aspects of drawing graphics, designing proper presentations, but at least I emphasized some points. And if you see these slides are also to some of you are exemplary. I used limited number of colors, limited number of styles, only one style of slides, black and white with red headings. So these type of presentations are more impressive compared to presentations with diverse styles, inconsistent styles in one presentation, and play with dark colors, dark backgrounds. So please be very careful which type of backgrounds you use for your presentations. Final slides should also acknowledge your team. I am proud of my international team and my supporters. I should also leave time for questions and answers and comments, and also some positive feedback, always positive feedback. Sometimes it is important to have team photos. Sometimes it is important to acknowledge support of our parents, of our family members who do a lot for us, I understand, and I truly appreciate our keynote speaker, Dr. Durga Misra, who also presented his final slide and appreciated support, acknowledged support of his parents. So this type of presentations, this type of acknowledgements are widely practiced in the Western world across countries. Questions and answers are important, but for for sake of time, because of limited time, we should ask questions, simple questions with yes and or no answers. Ask questions even without expecting answers, because these type of questions are brainstorming. You may ask different questions. You may inspire your audience to think about some questions, think about their future study designs, ask questions to public audience, to interesting for everyone. And sometimes it is also necessary to ask questions, respond to these questions without expecting proper correct answers from your audience. When you are asked as a keynote speaker to respond to some questions, you may also explain that you are not professional in some disciplines, in some fields. You may comment, but it sounds not so diplomatic when you decline responding to questions outright. So always try to comment, to discuss questions with your participants without outright declining outright. And remember that there are no stupid questions. All questions are correct. Encourage your audience to ask questions. Timing is important. I included the main point, and again repeat that point, 30 to 60 seconds per slide. Do not change slides quickly. Do not play with your slides. It's also discouraging. Most important information should be presented in the first and last slides. Always change tone and speed of presenting your presentation, your information that you try to convey. Sometimes it is necessary to pause, to slow down, to allow your participants to digest information, to think about questions, and then continue. So focus on artwork, evidence. Do not no need to be distracted by techniques, by noise surrounding your presentation. So a presentation is a dialogue, and always think that participants always learn something, even if presentation quality is not up to high standards. Presentation fonts and colors. Do not play with too many colors. Always stick to 2, 3, maximum 4 colors. Know about font size, and try to avoid gray letters. These are poorly visible. This slide is probably the best because background is white, and on white background, all fonts, all colors are clearly visible. Some of users or participants are used to yellow-blue type of background. It's old, relatively old style background used by those who used old style slides. In PPT slides, there is no need to change slides. I rarely or never change styles within one. I stick to one consistent style in presentation. Always you should try to present more graphical information, limit textual information. Always try to encircle important information, use different types of arrows to direct or point to some important parts in your slides. And those of our participants who are going to run or moderate webinars, there are some tips from experts, and I just picked some of the important tips. Create clear and engaging slides. Those who know how to work with social media, how to draw for social media, they will be good at drawing slides for presentations, drawing graphics for articles. Always evaluate your participant learning. Always ask feedback. Tsetso, Svetoslav Georgiev, please, feedback after this presentation. Provide your feedback. Vladimira, also be active. 2-3 words. Professor Lancina, comment on this presentation or all other presentations today. Few words, again, important. And by your feedback, we also, as speakers, we also understand how well we presented something, how this information processed by our audience. And third important tip for webinars, for presentations, share your own experience with the organizer. Let's say I am grateful to Taras Shevchenko Scientific Society and Lviv National Medical University, and also Western Scientific Society based in Lviv for organizing this series and paying attention to needs of researchers, authors who are going to write articles. So, and these type of presentations, these type of webinars, moderated and supported by our supporting organizations, are of course well acknowledged, well appreciated. For those who are going to design poster presentation, there is vast experience from other participants. I know that our moderator, Dr. Zimba is also good at designing poster presentations for different professional conferences, ULAR conferences, and I know that some of you also still have poster presentations, and for that you also need to know how to to work with graphics. And my final slide, instead of listing all my team members, all fellows, I just decided to use these historic photographs, and I thank some of my fellows from Kazakhstan, from my collaborators from Iran, from Mediterranean countries, from Croatia and Bosnia, from India, all my collaborators, fellows who have supported me, who took part in this webinar series, and I hope that all of you learned something today, and hopefully will continue our cooperation after this presentation. Thank you for your attention. I am open to your questions or comments.
Dear Arman, I would like to say that your current presentation is an example of excellent presentation, because you put all discussed your points, important points for good presentation in your own presentation.
Yeah, hopefully our participants will use the same style and will not play with colors in their presentations.
Thank you very much. And we have a few questions from our participants. The first one, your advice for non-Anglophone presenters, because it's always a stressful situation to present in English. What is your advice based on your personal experience, probably? How to deal with this stressful situation?
Guys, there is no need to be stressed. So we are going to run a number of other webinars covering linguistics issues, and I hope that English language department at your universities will also pay attention to your language skills, particularly in Eastern Europe. And you may also learn from our Indian participants whose English is perfect, though they have their Indian accent, but their English is perfect, grammatically, linguistically correct. So try to have more participants from India. Try to have more participants, more speakers from Chicago, Professor Vasil Lanchina, and also Professor Stoika from Lviv, whose English also perfect, though with Ukrainian accent, but it's grammatically and linguistically correct. And there is an experience, rich experience of this type of professors who share their experience. So I hope that some of our shy participants today will also try to ask questions, share their comments. There is no need to be afraid of sharing thoughts, sounding not so good at English. All types of activities are welcome. Don't be shy.
Thank you. And one more question from Professor Zayachkivska. What is the best way for including video to presentation?
Easy. So I know that Zoom platform allows you to generate video, supplementary materials. Let's say if you publish editorial, you may have text based on editorial, but you may also record a video by interviewing your author. and recording MP4 file, video file, and including that file short, 2-3 minutes, or 300 up to 500 megabytes MP4 file in your editorial as supplementary material.
Thank you very much, Professor Stoika, Professor Lonchina. Would you like to say something?
Thank you very much. It was very interesting, and what is important, very organizing. So for future presentations, although I have big experience, but still some issues were very important for me to stress them on, to focus on them. So thank you very much, Armen. Thank you.
Yes. So as we conclude this year, this crazy year, we can see a silver lining in what it forced us to do. And it has taken us from individual meetings and mass gatherings to virtual meetings. And we've accomplished a lot this year, thanks to Armen, Oksana, Olana, Dirga, Latika, and Valentina and Professor Stoika.
Don't be modest. Because of you, because of Professor Stoika, because of all our chairs.
Yeah. So what a wonderful series. And I didn't realize it was 12. I knew it was a lot, but 12 webinars this year, 4 hours each. That is a phenomenal amount of information that has been gathered and presented in a very succinct, organized fashion, logical, and there's so much information for young authors to digest, but at least it's a starting point. And I thank all the organizers and all the participants who did this. It's very, very important. And I think going forward, we shall continue this. And we shall go forward, and hopefully when we're able to meet, we'll have courses where we can sit and talk and listen and exchange ideas, shake hands, and be together and enjoy each other's company as we learn. And thank you again, Armen, for that final presentation, which is a very logical one, but things that people, they're, especially the ones that had their first presentations or are presenting, they have an assignment to present something and they are at a loss for, how do I do this? What do I do? And so you presented some very, very good points, especially the ones about make it simple, a few lines, the same font, watch your color combinations, because I mean, how many times you've been at a presentation where you have you're distracted by the presentation, the way it's formulated, by the colors that don't come out, by the font size being too small, and saying, why? I mean, I can't read it. Why are we even looking at this? So thank you for that kind of very basic information, which helps to standardize our approach. And hopefully all our young listeners will take that and we'll set that as a standard against which to present their work. At the end of the year, at the beginning of the new year, we wish you all the best in the new year. Merry Christmas, Happy Hanukkah, and good cheers for this holiday season. And we look forward to the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Vasil. Merry Christmas to you, your family. Stay healthy and hope to see you in person next year.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah, we have some interesting questions. I just quickly will go through these questions. There was a question about can we display images of patients, dermatological patients with skin problems on face or on intimate zones? So you may do that. with written informed consents and for professional scholarly journals. Be very careful because it's explicit material and not always clearly understandable for public. So any elements, skin elements on intimate zones should be processed very carefully with written informed consent from a patient and also with permission of editors. So because otherwise you may end up with some nasty comments of readers and also some disciplinary acts as well. I know about some investigations in Eastern Europe because of displaying or playing with presentations with so-called pornographic images. So be very careful. Also, there was a question about, there wasn't a question, there was, Olena, are you following? There was.
We discussed all questions,
Yes,
I
but
think.
there was something good feedback. Dear Amen, it was, she was Christina Nikolaich. I'm impressed by your lectures. Unfortunately, I had joined 2 sessions of webinars only last month, but I had received important knowledge this time. Thank you very much, Christina. Thank you to all our participants. So I wish all our participants happy and healthy Christmas, New Year, and hope to see you again. Some of you or most of you next year. My very best wishes to Professor Pankiv for upgrading Journal of Endocrinology, a Ukrainian journal, and indexing that journal by Web of Science, Scopus, and other important databases. So over to you, Olena.
Oksana Zaitchkivska, please.
Summary, yes, I also would like to confirm that was excellent today talks, several talks. We like your recommendation, and for me it was very impressive, your presentation, and thank you for whole year that you stay with us. We really got a lot of very important information. We learned a lot from you. And we do hope that our journal now is looks forward to improve. For next year will be little bit changes. So I serve my duties as a editor-in-chief 6 years, and so next first issue will be invited to editors, one from Italy, and another is our well-known colleagues to you is Dr. and Professor Andriy Bazilevich and Valentina Chopiak. So we have 3 new editors, and they will be also publish some good papers that was you hear last immunology webinar. So about COVID-19, also protocol D, very interesting from this Italy professor. So I do hope we are on the good way. And the second issue will be dedicated to the very interesting also topic, global health and medical imaging, together with UMANA, it's Ukrainian Medical Association of North America. And so Dr. Lev Volansky is chair, vice-president, and Professor Ivanev is our famous previous head of the Department of Radiology. They very well known in the East Europe specialist. So I do hope we are on the good way, but we already have 3 years full-colored issues, as you saw, so good polygraphy and good website. So I very appreciate for all my team, especially for young people, because without them we cannot move forward. Here today is present Uliana Teleshevska, Uliana Pidvalna, Marta Kowalska, Oleg Danilak. It's really a big team for promotion. And as you see, we also this year introduced first time the best reviewer and the top authors in our journals for publication when we use a specialty number of downloads and of this paper. So I think we're on the good way. We also apply for several membership, as you know, for different system of notification. And I strongly believe the next year will be year of the association, Ukrainian Association of Editors. So we will be now all documents with help of Dana Doskaluk from Ivano-Frankivsk. Is also a young physician, but very nice lady, very intensive work, physician, scientist, so, and very nice to communicate. And to learn control all this process, because she is served for us as responsible secretary, yes, for this association. So Lena, without you, we cannot move. We are very happy that you come back to us after a short material vacation, and so we do hope we together with you. You are our future editor. So I wish everyone who today participate in our meetings, first of all, to be healthy, not only you, for all members of your family, and Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas and Happy New Year without virus. You really have nice, very good test. We have very promising treatment by monoclonal antibodies. We have also 3 vaccines on the market. So in the United States, as we knew, I have picture from Dr. Volansky, who already did vaccination. And my son in Berlin prepared for 29th of December to do vaccination. So together we will, this is year for science, I think. It was year of science because I think all in the world people understand how important medicine and especially science, yes, to create some in really good, excellent weapon against COVID-19. So Merry Christmas and all the best to our members. Bye.
Yes, this is not a year to get everything you want. This is a year to appreciate everything that you have. Шановні колеги, від щирого серця вітаємо вас з прийдешніми святами, з Різдвом Христовим, з Новим роком. І бажаємо вам зустріти ці свята в родинному теплі, в добрі, з надією на майбутнє, і щоб в старому році залишилися всі негаразди, а в новому році здійснилися всі ваші мрії. Бажаємо вам міцного здоров'я, безмежного особистого щастя, всього найкращого. І до нових зустрічей.
Дякуємо, дякуємо всіх. До побачення. Дякую, Оленочка.
До побачення.
Дякую,
До побачення.
До побачення.
До побачення.